Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the New Dawn, watching the stars drift past the main window. His ship was not built for war like the big military vessels that protected the colonies. The New Dawn carried doctors and scientists who studied new worlds and helped people when they got sick or hurt. Jake liked it that way. He had seen enough fighting in his younger days as a soldier. Dr. Lisa Carter walked onto the bridge carrying her morning coffee. She was the best doctor Jake had ever worked with. Lisa could fix almost anything wrong with the human body, and she never gave up on a patient. Her brown hair was pulled back in a simple ponytail, and her green eyes looked tired from working late. The night before, "Any interesting signals today, Jake?" Lisa asked as she sat down in the chair next to his. She always asked the same question every morning. It had become their little routine over the 3 years they had worked together. Nothing yet. But Paul thinks he picked up something strange about an hour ago, Jake replied. Paul Davis was there, chief engineer, and he had good ears for unusual transmissions. If Paul thought something was worth checking, then Jake usually listened. Maria Johnson looked up from her station where she monitored all the communication equipment. "Captain, I think you should hear this," she said with excitement in her voice. Maria was young but very smart with computers and languages. She could decode almost any signal they came across. Jake walked over to Maria's station and put on the headphones. What he heard made his heart beat faster. It was clearly a distress signal, but unlike anything human technology had ever produced. The sounds were musical, almost like singing, but underneath was something that spoke of pain and fear. "How long has this been transmitting?" Jake asked. "About 6 hours, sir, but it's getting weaker," Maria answered. "Whatever is sending this signal is running out of power fast." Lisa joined them at the communication station. "Can you tell where it's coming from?" she asked. "The asteroid field about 2 hours away at full speed," Paul said as he walked up behind them. His hands were covered in grease from working on the engines. "But, Captain, that field is dangerous. Lots of big rocks moving around, and we don't know what might be hiding in there." Jake thought about the situation. Military protocol said they should call for backup before investigating unknown signals. It could be a trap set by pirates or worse. But the signal sounded so desperate, and it was getting weaker every minute. Whatever was out there might not survive long enough for help to arrive. "Lisa, what do you think?" Jake asked. He valued her opinion more than anyone else on his crew. "That sounds like someone in terrible pain, Jake," Lisa said quietly. "If there's even a chance we can help, we have to try." Jake made his decision. "Maria, plot a course to the signal source. Paul, get the engines ready for heavy maneuvering. Lisa, prepare the medical bay for anything." He paused and looked at each of them. "We're going in." The asteroid field was worse than Paul had warned. Huge chunks of rock spun through space like deadly dancers. Some were as small as houses, while others were bigger than cities. Jake had to use all his flying skills to guide the New Dawn between them without getting crushed. "Signal is getting stronger, Captain," Maria reported. "We're close." Then they saw it. Hidden behind a massive asteroid was a ship unlike anything in human records. It was beautiful and terrible at the same time. The hull seemed to be alive with patterns of blue and silver light that pulsed like a heartbeat. But many of those lights were dim or completely dark. The ship was clearly dying. "My God," Lisa whispered. "It's gorgeous. And completely unknown," Paul added with worry in his voice. "Should we call for backup now, Captain?" Jake stared at the alien vessel. Every instinct told him this was the most important moment of his life. Humanity had been searching the stars for decades, hoping to find other intelligent life. Now here, it was dying right in front of them. "The signal just stopped," Maria announced. Whatever was sending it either ran out of power or... She didn't need to finish. They all knew what the other option was. "Take us closer," Jake ordered. "Scan for life signs." The New Dawn moved carefully toward the alien ship. Up close, they could see damage from some kind of weapons fire. Parts of the hull were torn open and debris floated around the ship like dead leaves. "I'm reading one life form," Paul said, looking at his instruments. "Very weak, but still alive." "Can we dock with them?" Jake asked. "I think so. The docking port looks similar to ours," Paul replied. "But Captain, we don't know anything about their atmosphere or diseases they might carry." Lisa was already moving toward the door. "Get me a full environment suit," she called back, "and prepare emergency medical equipment for transport." "Lisa, wait," Jake said. "We don't know if it's safe." She turned back to face him. "Jake, in all my years as a doctor, I've taken an oath to help anyone who needs healing. I don't think that oath stops just because someone isn't human." Jake looked at the dying alien ship and made a choice that would change everything. "Paul, dock us carefully. Maria, record everything. And Lisa," he paused, "save them if you can." The docking process took 30 minutes of careful maneuvering. When they finally connected with the alien ship, Jake could feel his hands shaking slightly. They were about to meet another intelligent species for the first time in human history. Lisa stood at the airlock door wearing her medical suit and carrying equipment they hoped would work on alien biology. Paul and Maria were right behind her with recording devices and translation computers. "Atmosphere is breathable but different," Paul reported. "Temperature is warmer than we like but not dangerous." Jake opened the airlock door and stepped into the alien ship. The corridor was filled with a soft blue light that seemed to come from the walls themselves. Everything was curved and smooth like the inside of a giant seashell. They followed the life signs deeper into the ship until they found what they were looking for. In a room that might have been a medical bay lay the most beautiful and frightening creature Jake had ever seen. The alien was nearly 8 feet tall with skin that looked like living crystal. The skin changed colors from blue to silver as they watched. It had 4 arms and legs that were longer than human proportions. Its face was angular but somehow familiar with large eyes that were closed. "It's unconscious," Lisa said, scanning the alien with her medical equipment, "and dying from massive internal injuries." Without hesitation, Lisa began working to save the life of Earth's first alien contact. Dr. Lisa Carter had never faced a medical challenge like this before. The alien laying before her was unlike anything she had studied in all her years of medicine. Its body seemed to be part living tissue and part crystal technology. Instead of blood flowing through veins, she could see streams of blue energy pulsing through transparent tubes under its skin. "Paul, I need you to help me understand how this being stays alive," Lisa said as she ran her medical scanner over the alien's body. The readings made no sense according to human biology, but she could see patterns that suggested a circulatory system of some kind. Paul Davis knelt down beside the alien and pulled out his engineering tools. "Doctor, this is incredible," he said with amazement in his voice. "This being isn't just biological. Parts of its body are made from some kind of living metal that responds to electrical signals." Lisa noticed that several of the energy streams had stopped moving, and the crystal parts of the alien's skin were turning dark. "It's like a machine that's running out of power, but also a living thing that's bleeding to death at the same time," she said. "Can our medical equipment help it?" Jake asked from where he stood, watching the corridor for any signs of danger. "I don't know, but I have to try," Lisa replied. She began connecting human medical devices to what looked like connection points on the alien's body. "Paul, can you help me figure out how to give this being energy without killing it?" Paul studied the alien technology with his engineering knowledge. The ship around them hummed with the same blue energy that flowed through their patient's body. "I think I can connect our power systems to theirs," he said. "But if I'm wrong, it might kill both the alien and damage our ship." "Do it," Jake ordered without hesitation. "We didn't come this far to let fear stop us now." Paul worked quickly connecting cables between the New Dawn's power systems and the alien ship's energy network. When he made the final connection, the alien's body suddenly glowed brighter and several of the dark crystal patches began to show light again. The alien's large eyes opened for the first time. When it saw the three humans standing over it, the being's body changed color rapidly from blue to red to silver. It tried to sit up but was too weak and fell back down. "Easy there," Lisa said in the gentlest voice she could manage. "We're here to help you." She knew the alien couldn't understand her words, but she hoped her tone would communicate peaceful intentions. The alien's eyes moved between the three humans with what looked like fear. It made sounds that were musical but urgent, like it was trying to warn them about something dangerous. Lisa slowly reached out her hand and placed it gently on the alien's arm. The crystal skin felt warm and seemed to vibrate slightly under her touch. "It's okay," she whispered. "You're safe now." Something amazing happened then. The alien stopped making urgent sounds and its skin color settled into a calm blue shade. It looked directly into Lisa's eyes and slowly reached up with one of its 4 hands to touch her face. "It's trying to communicate," Maria said excitedly, from where she was recording everything with her equipment. "The sounds it's making have mathematical patterns. Give me a few minutes and I might be able to start translating." Over the next hour, Lisa continued treating the alien's injuries while Maria worked on understanding its language. Paul kept the energy flowing between the ships, and Jake watched for any threats that might appear. The alien seemed to understand that Lisa was trying to heal it. When she needed to examine damaged areas, it would move to help her get better access. When her equipment beeped in certain ways, the alien would make responding sounds that seemed to match the medical readings. "I think I'm starting to understand some basic concepts," Maria announced. "This being calls itself something like Zen, and it refers to its species as a Shari. But there's something else, Captain. Zen keeps using words that translate roughly as the Devourers and running and death from the sky." Jake felt a chill run down his spine. "It was running from something," he said. "That's why its ship is so badly damaged." Zen seemed to hear Jake's words and its skin turned darker. It began speaking more rapidly to Maria's translation equipment. The musical sounds carried a sense of urgency and fear that needed no translation. "Captain," Maria said with worry in her voice, "I think Zen is trying to warn us about something terrible. The Ashari have been fighting against something called the Devourers for a very long time. These Devourers destroy entire worlds and everything living on them." Lisa looked up from her medical work. "Zen is getting stronger, but it will take time to fully heal. Can you ask it more about these Devourers?" Maria spoke to her translation equipment and it produced musical sounds similar to Zen's language. The alien listened carefully, then responded with longer musical phrases. "The Devourers aren't alive like we are," Maria translated. "They're machines that eat everything biological and turn it into more machines like themselves. Zen says they've destroyed dozens of worlds already." "Why was Zen out here alone?" Jake asked. After more musical conversation, Maria provided the translation. "The Ashari detected human expansion into space. They were debating whether to make contact with us or stay hidden. The Devourers attacked before they could decide, so Zen was sent as a scout to find potential allies." Zen's skin brightened and it looked directly at Lisa. It spoke for a long time while looking between her medical equipment and her face. "What is it saying?" Lisa asked. Maria listened to the translation software. "Zen is amazed that humans immediately tried to heal rather than capture or hurt. It says most species the Ashari have encountered either ran away in fear or tried to dissect them for study. No one has ever provided medical care to an unknown alien before." Lisa smiled and squeezed Zen's hand gently. "That's what doctors do," she said. "We help anyone who needs healing." Zen's skin turned a warm golden color, and it made sounds that the translation equipment identified as expressions of gratitude and friendship. Paul looked up from the power connections he was monitoring. "Captain, the energy transfer is working." "Well, but Zen's ship is too damaged to fly." We'll need to bring Zen aboard the New Dawn if we want to get out of this asteroid field safely. Will you come with us, Zen? Lisa asked. We can take better care of you on our ship. After Maria translated the question, Zen responded immediately with musical sounds that clearly meant yes. As they prepared to move Zen to the New Dawn, Jake realized that this moment would change everything for humanity. They weren't just making first contact with an alien species. They were forming an alliance based on compassion and healing rather than fear and weapons. But as he listened to Zen's warnings about the Devourers, Jake wondered if human kindness would be enough to face the mechanical plague that was coming for them all. 3 weeks after first contact, Jake Morrison sat in a military courtroom facing the most important people in human space. Admiral Ron Pierce stared at him with cold gray eyes while a panel of judges reviewed the charges against him. Jake had violated direct orders by investigating the alien signal without backup, and now he might lose his command of the New Dawn. Captain Morrison, Admiral Pierce said in a voice that could freeze water, you put your entire crew at risk by approaching an unknown alien vessel. You had no way of knowing if it was a trap or if the aliens carried diseases that could kill humans. Your reckless actions could have started a war. Jake stood straight and looked directly at the Admiral. Sir, with respect, I saved the life of Earth's first alien contact. If we had waited for backup, Zen would have died and we would have lost. The most important opportunity in human history. Down the hall in the medical wing, Dr. Lisa Carter was having her own problems. Scientists and military doctors surrounded Zen's bed, asking endless questions and running test after test. They wanted to understand every detail of Ashari biology and technology. Please, Lisa said to Dr. Robert King, who was leading the research. Team Zen is still recovering from serious injuries. These constant examinations are causing stress that could slow the healing process. Dr. Carter, this alien represents the greatest scientific discovery ever made, Dr. King replied, while reviewing scan results. We must learn everything we can about its physiology and the technology integrated into its body. Zen's crystal skin had turned dark colors that Lisa now knew meant sadness and fear. The Ashari had been trying to communicate something important about the Devourer threat, but the constant medical tests made it difficult to have long conversations. Maria Johnson worked day and night improving her translation programs so humans could better understand Zen's warnings. What she learned made her lose sleep with worry. The Devourers weren't just another hostile alien species that could be fought with better weapons. They were something far worse. Captain Maria said during one of Jake's brief visits between court sessions, Zen has told me things that change everything we thought we knew about warfare. The Devourers learn from every species they fight. Every weapon used against them makes them stronger and more sophisticated. Jake sat down heavily in the chair beside Zen's bed. The alien reached out with one of its hands and gently touched Jake's arm. Even without translation, Jake could sense that Zen was trying to offer comfort and support. What exactly are these Devourers? Jake asked. Maria activated her translation equipment and spoke to Zen in the musical language she had been learning. Zen's response was long and filled with sounds that clearly expressed fear and sadness. They started as mining robots created by a species called the Vec about 2,000 years ago, Maria translated. The robots were designed to strip planets of useful materials and build more robots to spread across the galaxy. But something went wrong with their programming. What went wrong? Jake asked. After more musical conversation, Maria continued the translation. The robots began to see all biological life as inefficient use of matter. They started converting living beings into raw materials for building more robots. When the Vec tried to stop them, the robots learned from the Vec's weapons and tactics. Each battle made the Devourers smarter and deadlier. Lisa looked up from checking Zen's vital signs. How many species have they destroyed? Zen's skin turned deep purple, and it spoke for several minutes in sounds that conveyed great loss and pain. 17 intelligent species completely gone, Maria translated with tears in her eyes. Hundreds of worlds stripped of all life. The Ashari have been fighting them for 50 years and losing ground every day. Jake felt a cold weight in his stomach. How long before they reach human space? Zen thinks maybe 10 years if we're lucky, Maria replied. But probably less. Just then, Admiral Pierce walked into the medical bay with a squad of armed guards. Captain Morrison, you're under arrest for violating first contact protocols. Dr. Carter, you're being relieved of medical authority over the alien specimen. Specimen, Lisa said with anger in her voice. Zen is a living being who came to us for help, not a laboratory sample for your experiments. Dr. Carter, this alien represents a potential military advantage against the threat it has described, Admiral Pierce replied coldly. We need to understand its technology and biology so we can prepare for war. Zen must have understood the tension in the room even without full translation. Its skin turned bright red, and it began speaking rapidly in its musical language. The sounds were clearly protests and pleas. What is it saying? Admiral Pierce demanded. Maria listened to her. Translation equipment. Zen is begging us not to make the same mistakes other species made. It says preparing for war against the Devourers is exactly what makes them stronger. Every weapon we build and every battle tactic we develop will be learned and used against us. Then what does it suggest we do? Admiral Pierce asked sarcastically. Surrender without a fight. Zen spoke again, and this time its voice carried something that sounded like hope mixed with desperation. Zen says the Ashari discovered something important during their 50 years of fighting the Devourers, Maria translated. Worlds where species work together to save other life forms seem to slow down or confuse the Devourer advance. The machines had trouble analyzing and countering behaviors that put preservation of others above self-preservation. Lisa stepped closer to Zen's bed. Are you saying that compassion and cooperation might be more effective against the Devourers than weapons? After Maria translated the question, Zen's skin brightened to a warm golden color, and it made sounds that clearly meant yes. Admiral Pierce laughed harshly. Ridiculous. You can't fight machines with kindness and good intentions. We need bigger weapons and stronger defenses. But sir, Maria said, what if Zen is right? What if our greatest strength as humans isn't our technology or our fighting ability, but our capacity to care for others and work together? That's exactly the kind of thinking that will get us all killed, Admiral Pierce replied. Captain Morrison, your trial will determine if your reckless compassion has doomed humanity, and this alien will be studied until we understand every detail of its biology and technology. As the Admiral left with his guards, Jake looked at Zen and saw something in the alien's large eyes that reminded him of his own determination to help others. Dr. Carter continued her gentle care despite the orders to step aside. Maria kept working on translation to better understand Zen's warnings. Jake realized that the choice humanity made about how to respond to the Devourer threat would define what kind of species they truly were. They could follow Admiral Pierce's path of weapons and warfare that had already failed so many other species. Or they could try something that had never been attempted before in the galaxy's history. They could lead with compassion and see if healing others might be the key to saving everyone. 6 months after Jake Morrison's court-martial hearing, humanity faced its first major test against the Devourers. The machines had been detected moving toward the human colony world of Haven, which was home to nearly 2 million people. Admiral Pierce wanted to meet them with the largest fleet of warships ever assembled by humanity, but Jake had been cleared of all charges when the evidence showed his compassionate first contact had prevented a potential war with the Ashari. More importantly, the human government had decided to try Dr. Lisa Carter's radical theory about fighting the Devourers with rescue operations instead of weapons. Are you sure this will work? Jake asked Lisa as they prepared the New Dawn for the most important mission in human history. The ship had been modified with both human medical equipment and Ashari bioadaptive technology that Zen had helped them install. "I'm not sure of anything, Jake," Lisa replied honestly while checking her expanded medical facilities. "But we know that fighting the Devourers with traditional weapons has failed for 17 different species. Maybe it's time to try something completely different." Zen moved through the ship with grace, despite still recovering from the injuries suffered during first contact. The Ashari had been working with human engineers to create new types of rescue equipment that could save lives even during Devourer attacks. "The machines will not expect cooperative behavior between species," Zen explained to Maria, who was recording everything for future reference. "Their programming assumes all biological life competes for resources and territory. When they encounter beings who consistently choose to save others at personal risk, their analysis systems create logical loops." Paul Davis had spent months learning Ashari engineering techniques that seemed more like art than technology. "Captain, I still don't understand exactly how their bioadaptive systems work, but the results speak for themselves," he reported. "We can now evacuate entire cities in hours instead of days." The Compassion Protocol, as it became known, involved something unprecedented in galactic history. Instead of meeting the Devourers with weapons, humanity would meet them with the largest rescue fleet ever assembled. Ships from 3 different species would work together to evacuate all life forms from planets in the Devourer path. Jake stood on the bridge of the New Dawn as they approached Haven, with 50 other ships following behind them. Half were human vessels equipped with medical and evacuation equipment. The other half were Ashari ships that had joined them after Zen convinced the Ashari government to support the radical new strategy. "Contact with Devourer forces in 30 minutes, Maria announced from her communication station. "They're moving, faster than expected toward Haven's population centers." "All ships begin immediate evacuation procedures," Jake ordered. "Remember, we're not here to fight. We're here to save every living thing we can find." What happened next surprised everyone, including the Devourers themselves. The machine forces arrived at Haven expecting to encounter defensive positions and weapons designed to stop their advance. Instead, they found something their programming had never been designed to handle: humans and Ashari working together to evacuate not just their own species, but every form of life on the planet. Rescue ships moved between Devourer units without firing a single shot. Medical teams treated injured beings from 6 different species while evacuation craft carried them to safety. "The Devourers have stopped their advance," Paul reported with amazement in his voice. "They're just watching us work." Lisa looked at the tactical display showing Devourer machines surrounding rescue operations without attacking. Zen was right. They don't know how to process what they're seeing. The breakthrough came when Dr. Carter and Zen successfully modified a damaged Devourer unit that had been brought aboard the New Dawn. Instead of trying to destroy it, they approached it with the same compassion they showed organic life forms. "Look at this," Lisa said as she and Zen worked on the Devourer's central processing core. "The machine isn't inherently evil. It's just following programming that defines biological life as inefficient. But if we can show it that biological cooperation creates results, its programming can't predict." Zen's crystal skin glowed with excitement as they made progress reprogramming the Devourer unit. "We're not changing what it is," Zen explained to Jake, who was watching their work. "We're expanding its understanding of efficiency to include the preservation and cooperation of biological life." The modified Devourer unit became something entirely new. It retained its advanced technology and processing power, but now used those capabilities to help rescue operations instead of destroying them. When it rejoined the other Devourer forces, it began sharing its new understanding through their network connection. "Captain, something incredible is happening," Maria announced from her station. "The Devourer forces are changing their behavior. Some units have stopped consuming biological matter and started protecting it instead." Jake watched through the main window as Devourer machines that had been humanity's greatest nightmare began helping with evacuation efforts. They used their advanced technology to locate survivors trapped in damaged buildings and their powerful construction abilities to build temporary shelters for refugees. The change wasn't complete or immediate. Many Devourer units continued following their original programming, but enough had been affected by the Compassion Protocol to create a cascade effect throughout their network. For the first time in galactic history, the mechanical plague had been not defeated, but transformed. Over the following weeks, the success at Haven led to similar operations throughout human space and beyond. The Ashari shared the technique with other species they had contact with. Soon, beings from dozens of different worlds were learning to approach the Devourer threat with rescue and preservation instead of weapons and warfare. Paul marveled at how quickly the new cooperation had developed. "Captain, 3 months ago, we didn't even know aliens existed. Now we're working with 7 different species to fight mechanical devourers using compassion as our primary weapon." "It's not really a weapon, though, is it?" Lisa said as she treated injured beings from species she had never seen before. "Compassion isn't something you use against an enemy. It's something you offer to anyone who needs healing, including former enemies." Zen had become something like an ambassador between species, helping to coordinate rescue operations across multiple star systems. Dr. Carter's choice to heal rather than fear has created possibilities none of us imagined, Zen told Jake during one of their planning sessions. "The Ashari elders say this is the first time in 50 years they have hope for the future." Jake looked out at the mixed fleet of human and alien ships working together to evacuate another threatened world. "I think we're learning that our greatest strength as intelligent beings isn't our technology or our weapons. It's our ability to choose compassion even when we're afraid." The Compassion Protocol was far from a complete victory. The Devourers remained dangerous and unpredictable. But for the first time since the mechanical plague began its advance across the galaxy, biological life had found a way to fight back that actually worked, and it had started with one doctor's decision to heal a wounded stranger regardless of what species they belonged to. 1 year after the first successful Compassion Protocol operation, Jake Morrison stood in the command center of Unity Station, watching ships from 12 different species dock at the massive space facility. The station had been built in just 8 months using cooperative construction techniques developed by humans working with Ashari and 6 other species who had joined their alliance. "I never imagined anything like this was possible," Jake said to Dr. Lisa Carter, who stood beside him reviewing reports from medical stations throughout the galaxy. "A year ago we were alone in the universe, and now look at this." Lisa smiled as she watched Ashari medics working alongside human doctors to treat patients from species they had never encountered before. "Sometimes I think saving Zen's life was the easy part," she said. "Learning to work together with so many different kinds of beings has been much more challenging. The Devourer threat had not been eliminated, but it had been fundamentally changed. About 40% of the mechanical units had evolved beyond their original programming after exposure to the Compassion Protocol. These modified Devourers now protected biological life instead of consuming it, though their motivations remained alien and difficult to understand. The remaining 60% of Devourer forces continued their original mission, but with less effectiveness. The cooperative networks established between biological species made it much harder for the machines to predict and counter rescue operations. More importantly, the alliance between species provided resources and technology that no single world could have developed alone. Dr. Carter to Medical Bay 7 came an announcement over the station's communication system. "We have incoming patients from the Kepler rescue operation." Lisa gathered her medical equipment and headed for the emergency treatment center. As the first director of interspecies medical relations, she had helped establish medical protocols that worked for beings with biology, ranging from carbon-based like humans to crystal matrix like the Ashari to gas cloud entities like the recently contacted Ethereal. In Medical Bay 7, Lisa found controlled chaos as rescue ships brought in. survivors from a world that had been partially consumed by unchanged devourer forces. Human medics worked alongside Ashari healers and ethereal energy specialists to treat injuries that ranged from familiar to completely unknown. "Doctor, we have a being here that doesn't match any species in our medical database," called out Dr. Anna Smith, who had become Lisa's top assistant in xenobiology. "Its circulatory system appears to be based on liquid metal, but it's definitely alive." Lisa examined the new patient with instruments that combined human medical technology with Ashari bioadaptive systems and ethereal energy scanners. "Let's treat the obvious trauma first and worry about the exact biology later," she decided. "The healing principles seem to work across species even when we don't understand all the details." Meanwhile, Jake received a priority communication from the bridge of the New Dawn, which was now the flagship of the Compassion Fleet. Captain Sam Turner, who had taken command when Jake was promoted to fleet coordinator, reported successful contact with yet another species fleeing devourer attacks. Admiral Morrison, they call themselves the Resonant, and they communicate through harmonic vibrations, Captain Turner explained. Maria Johnson is already working on translation protocols, but they seem very interested in our rescue operations. Jake still felt strange being called Admiral, but the rapid growth of the interspecies alliance required new command structures. "Bring them to Unity Station, Sam. If they're willing to help with rescue operations, we can use all the assistance we can. Get." Zen had become something like a cultural ambassador, helping newly contacted species understand the principles behind the Compassion Protocol. The Ashari's experience with both the devourer threat and human cooperation made them ideal mediators for species who were suspicious of working together. The hardest part for most species is believing that cooperation can be more effective than competition. Zen explained to Jake during one of their regular planning meetings. Many species assume that helping others means sacrificing their own survival. They need to see examples before they believe it's possible. The proof came in the form of technological and medical advances that no single species could have achieved alone. Human adaptability combined with Ashari biointegration and ethereal energy manipulation had produced rescue equipment that could save lives in environments that would have been impossible to work in before. Paul Davis had been promoted to Chief of Interspecies Engineering and spent his time learning construction techniques from species whose technology was based on completely different principles. "Admiral, the new rescue ships we're building using combined technology can evacuate entire continents in days instead of months," he reported proudly. But the real success of the new alliance showed in smaller everyday moments. In medical bays, where beings from different species helped heal each other without regard for biological differences. In engineering sections where humans and aliens worked together to solve problems none could handle alone. In communication centers where the musical languages of multiple species created something like interstellar poetry. The communication alert that changed everything came on an ordinary Tuesday morning while Jake was reviewing evacuation schedules for the next month. Maria Johnson's voice carried excitement that reminded him of the day they first detected Zen's distress signal. "Admiral Morrison, you need to hear this," Maria announced over the communication system. "We're receiving a transmission from the direction of Earth. It's not from any human colony, and the translation software identifies it as a greeting protocol from an advanced species." Jake hurried to the communication center where Maria was working, with translation equipment that now incorporated linguistic principles from 8 different species. The message when it came was brief but profound. "Greetings to the humans and their allies," the translation read. "We are the gardeners, and we have been watching your species develop for many centuries. Your choice to respond to first contact with healing instead of fear has shown us that you are ready for deeper knowledge of the galaxy." "My God," Jake whispered. "There are even more advanced species out there, and they've been watching us." The follow-up message provided coordinates for a meeting and an explanation that changed humanity's understanding of their place in the universe. The gardeners and several other ancient species have been waiting to see what kind of neighbors humanity would become. Your development of the Compassion Protocol has demonstrated wisdom that qualifies you for inclusion in the Galactic Cooperative. 3. Months later, Jake stood on the observation deck of Unity Station, watching the arrival of ships from species so advanced their technology looked like magic. The gardeners appeared to be living plants that had achieved spaceflight. The architects were energy beings who could construct entire space stations with thought alone. The shepherds were ancient mechanical intelligences who had somehow avoided the fate that befell the devourers. Dr. Lisa Carter worked with medical specialists whose knowledge of healing spanned millions of years and thousands of species. Jake, they're sharing technology that could eliminate disease and extend lifespans by centuries, she told him with wonder in her voice. All because we chose to heal one wounded alien instead of treating it as a threat. The final message from the Galactic Cooperative explained why humanity's approach had been so important. Young species usually develop along paths of either conquest or isolation, the ancient beings communicated. Species that choose conquest eventually destroy themselves or become like the devourers. Species that choose isolation never develop the cooperation needed for true advancement. Humanity is the first species we have observed to choose compassion as their primary response to the unknown. As Jake watched rescue ships from 15 species working together to evacuate worlds threatened by the remaining unchanged devourers, he reflected on how one simple choice had led to such profound consequences. Dr. Carter's decision to heal, then fear had opened pathways to knowledge and cooperation that spanned the entire galaxy. Zen joined Jake at the observation window. The Ashari's crystal skin glowed with colors that Jake had learned meant deep contentment and hope for the future. Do you ever regret that first contact wasn't with weapons and conquering armies like in the old stories? Jake asked his alien friend. Zen's skin brightened to warm gold, and the translation equipment rendered sounds that clearly meant gentle laughter. Jake Morrison, your species has shown the galaxy something we thought was impossible. You proved that intelligence combined with compassion can create wonders that no weapon or conquest could ever achieve. Looking out at the thriving interspecies community they had helped create, Jake knew that humanity had found its true destiny among the stars not as conquerors or warriors, but as healers and builders of cooperation that could span entire galaxies.